Why do people play Type Soul? Is Type Soul even a good game? These are the questions I want to answer in today's video. But in order for me to answer these questions properly, I will need to dive into the game to try to figure out what makes people play the game, or if it's even good in the first place. To do this, I'll be going over the progression, the PvP, and the in-game content. But really quickly before I get into the video, if this isn't your first time watching my videos, why not subscribe? You get notified of all of my uploads while also helping me out. It's a win-win for both of us. Now with that being said, let's get into it. Let's start with the progression. Type Soul progression is very simple. When you first join the game, you're able to pick from 3 factions: Arrancar, Soul Reaper, and Quincy. Each faction's progression is basically the same, with a couple of differences, so I won't be talking about them individually. After you pick your faction, you'll spawn in that faction's area to start off. For Arrancars, you'll spawn in Huecamundo. For Soul Reapers, you spawn in Soul Society. And for Quincy's, you spawn in Wandon. Now here's the fun part. In order to level up, you get to click on quest boards. What? Did you expect more? Nah, that's it. Now go beat on some hollows until you get grade 2. Once you get grade 2, you can now get your faction's respective abilities. Arrancars get their partial res, Soul Reapers get their Shikai, and Quincy's get their Shrift. The quest to obtain each ability is different for every faction, so I'm gonna quickly run through them. For partial res, first, you need to go to the Colosseum and talk to this NPC. Then after you do that, go to the second floor of the castle and click on the orb thing on the table. Then walk all the way to this big hole, jump in it, then complete a stupid obby. Then you have your partial res. For Soul Reapers, after you're done bandit beating to grade 2, you need to meditate 3 times for 5 to 7 minutes. Then, after that, do some tasks, which I will not be going over. I ain't doing all that shit. Then meditate again to fight your Shikai, then beat it to get your Shikai. And for Quincy's, you just need to click on this statue, do some quests, talk to this dude, and then boom, you have your Shrift. Now after you've done that, you need to go from semi-grade 1 to elite grade. Don't worry, the grind isn't fun or anything, it's just more bandit beating, while also having to kill players to level up as well. Now that you're elite grade, you gotta obtain your Bankai, Volt, Res, Visored, blah blah blah. I ain't explaining all that shit. Go look up a guide video or something. Now let's talk about the PvP. Type Soul PvP is probably one of the more controversial parts of the game, mainly due to how unbalanced and how out of touch with the community the devs seem like at times. But I won't be getting into that stuff right now. The PvP is basically just Deepwoken from Wish. The pairing isn't bad, but it just feels worse than Deepwoken. One really annoying thing about the PvP, to me personally, is the fact that you can't parry after you've already started M1ing, which is really annoying mid-fight. When you've pressed M1 and the person you're fighting just uses some hyper armor ability and you need to block, but you can't since you were trying to M1. But in Deepwoken, this isn't an issue, which is one reason I feel like the PvP in that game is just way smoother and feels nicer. The fundamentals of Type Soul PvP aren't bad and can be really fun to play, but in my opinion, the PvP really falls flat when it comes to the balancing. There are 4 skill trees: Hakuda, Kendo, Kido, and Speed. I would say 5, but honestly, who really gives a fuck about Medic at this point? Each skill tree is actually pretty good, besides Medic of course. None of the skill trees really stand out from the other ones, except maybe Hakuda, which apparently is the worst skill tree in the game, while all the top players use it, which I don't see how that makes sense, but Every skill tree in the majority of Shikai's, Shrifts, and Resurrections are usable and can perform well in the right hands. You may be thinking, all that sounds pretty balanced and good. What's the problem exactly? Well, the problem isn't that anything is weak, it's just that the strong stuff is just too strong. For example, this shit. Stuff like Duality, where every move either guard breaks or has hyper armor, so even a lobotomized fish could use it and do well. Overpowered essences that don't get nerfed, like Horizon Core. Stuff like Kyoka, Benehime, Death Dealing, Light, Storm, all shit that were broken on release, or right now. The list of broken stuff goes on and on, to the point where if I sat here and named them all, that could be a whole video on its own. It's really gotten to the point where the PvP is just a battle to see who has the better build, which in my opinion is pretty fucking trash. But to be fair, I'm not the best Type Soul player. I don't consider myself good at the game or anything. So if you don't think my opinion is valid because you think I'm bad at the game or something, well, to be honest, I think that's a pretty fucking stupid opinion. I don't think you really have to be good at the game to be knowledgeable on its current state. But just in case if you do think that, I did ask my friend who's pretty good at the game to give his thoughts on the current state of the PvP in Type Soul.
At the current rank 50 in Type Soul, I think PvP is like bad, right? Because there's obviously better shit like Duality and Kyoka, but you can make everything good. It kind of just depends on the player. But the like essences and stuff is where the game gets bad, because there's certain essences that are just way better. Like Unseen gets nerfed to the ground, but Horizon can still do like 2 bars if you land both the true pierces, and I just think that's not fair. I think Type Soul PvP is ass, because it's obviously that one race has way better shit, and you're just not gonna win most fights because they just have better stuff than you. That's it.
Now for the end game. All there really is to do is ranked, clan wars, boss raids, and Yeah, that's fucking it. Oh, and if you can't find a clan, you can go ahead and take Clan Wars out of there. So with basically nothing to do, terrible balancing, an absolutely fucking atrocious, tedious, and boring progression system, and overall, just being a worse version of Deboken off of Temu, why the hell do people play this game? Well, I think the answer is quite simple. It's just a fun PvP. That's literally it. People on Roblox just like fighting other players. The PvP doesn't even have to be good. I mean, just look at the amount of Battlegrounds games on the platform. They all have the same clunky, trash, land 1m1, then press buttons in a certain order, brainless combat. But those games are doing well, because people just like using brain dead, easy to use, strong abilities, which also applies to Type Soul to a certain extent. Another reason I believe Type Soul is outperforming Deboken is just because Type Soul is a lot easier to get into. Yes, I know Type Soul has no type of guide or tutorial and is literally impossible to play without outside help. That doesn't make it hard to get into, just more tedious. The same thing also applies to Deboken. There is no tutorial. The only difference is just a lower skill floor in Type Soul. Despite the game being parry based, I promise you this shit is not hard to get used to, especially with all the brain dead hyper armor abilities and disgusting keto users that just run and spam. And with Deboken, the PvP is just way harder to get into since the skill floor is actually pretty high, and you can't really get into the PvP without losing all your progress because of the terrible ranked and Voidwalker system. So basically, a quick summary on why I think people play Type Soul. People play Type Soul because the PvP is fun and easy to get into, and everything is just broken so it's fun to use. That pretty much wraps up the video. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. I mean, you did make it to the end of the video, so why not? But even if you don't subscribe, thank you for even clicking on my video. Your support is very appreciated. Have a great day or night wherever you are, and I will see y'all next time.
Wow.